Good afternoon, I'm Warren Ellie. This is Last Call. The Tin Man, borrowing from a Times editorial Sunday, the lament if Governor Rick Scott only had a heart. My guest, Tampa free speech advocate, businessman, and entrepreneur, Joe Redner. Joe, thanks so much for coming back to WMNF. Welcome.
Hey, I always love to come see you, Warren.
Well, I love to come have you aboard. It's just great. Joe, we've got some some news to report today, but before we get to that, what do you make? I know we talked about, off the air, we talked a little about this editorial. It said in the Times editorial Sunday regarding the Tin Man, Rick Scott, a chief executive that the Times described as someone who shows no heartfelt connection to the state, appreciation for its values, or compassion for its residents. In 3 years, the Times wrote, Scott's done more harm than any modern governor, from voting rights to privacy rights, public schools to higher education, environmental protection, health care. One more legislative session, wrote the Times, and a $100 million re-election campaign will not undo the damage.
Don't like Scott. I don't know what's wrong with him. I don't think he's all there. Never did like him. He's a crook. He's one of the biggest thieves there ever was. I mean, he stole, what, $1.5 billion his company stole, paid less of a fine, the company cost of operating, the fine was less than what they stole. Boy, I want to get in on that.
Some of the things that don't seem to make sense. Duke Energy charging customers billions for nuclear plants botched or never built. He doesn't seem to care about that. It's perfectly okay for the folks to pay for the utilities' mistakes.
It seems like it's okay with the public too, because they keep putting the same people in office. Although when I think about it, I think I was the only one that was really a little different that ran for office. I mean, there's a lot of Democrats up there. I'm an independent. There's a lot of Democrats up there in that Republican House and Senate, in the Senate. And they keep doing the same thing over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And
I was going to say something else. I forgot what I was going to say.
Well, that's all right. That's all right. I guess the big one that and he doesn't even mention. He said he was going to support federal funds for those 1 million Floridians' health insurance on the Medicare. He said he was going to expand it, but he never campaigned for it, and he just did State of the State, never even mentioned it.
Isn't the money there for him to?
Well, all he's got to do is take it, just like the high-speed rail.
How much is it? 50 billion or something?
51 million.
And why isn't he taking it?
I don't know, he hasn't explained
Yeah,
it.
he has. He says he's not taking the money for insurance because there's no guarantee after 2 or 3 years that he's gonna keep on getting it. Well, that doesn't make sense to me.
He reluctantly conceded.
At least you're insuring those people for 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
They're not insured now, period. You're insuring them for 2 or 3 years. If it goes away, it goes away, but it's not necessarily so that it's gonna go away.
No. 813-239-9663 to talk to Joe Redner. 813-239-9663. Joe, we had a bill pass the House Criminal Justice Committee. Sean Kinnan just reported on the WMNF Drive Time News that allows this Charlotte's Web, that low THC strain that they say in liquid form can be of help to sick kids. And that's cleared the House Criminal Justice Committee. That would seem pretty significant.
Yeah, I think that's probably their token there. How do you say no to a child that may be dying and to help his life a little bit? That's the heart. They don't have a heart. He's a tin man. The rest of them are. I had chemo, radiation, intensive, and that marijuana, let me tell you something. It was a godsend, and I'm an atheist, okay? It was a nature send. It was there. I thought I was dying. I smoked it, no, I didn't smoke. I ate a little marijuana, and it just settled me right down, made me feel like life was worth living. If they keep that from people, they have no heart. And you've got to have, Now, I was at Morgan's debate down there at the University of Tampa. And
John Morgan, right?
Yeah, and he had some people up there he was debating with. It got kind of crazy, and they were saying that they were okay with marijuana when they worked all the high out of it, and they could just get the benefit, the medical benefit from it. And I'm thinking to myself, how'd that work with morphine? How did that work? You can't take the high out of marijuana and let it do the job it's supposed to do. It won't. Just like hydrocodone or morphine or any of those other things, you take the high out of it, it will not stop the pain. It just won't. They haven't been able to, they won't be able to do it with marijuana.
But certainly, there's gonna be some action on it, at least this step, with the Charlotte's Web.
It does,
You think that'll probably pass?
For a few children. But what good is that gonna do to the cancer patient? It's not gonna do anything for the cancer patient.
So, the hope for those folks is this constitutional amendment.
Or, as we know, the legislature may rush to pass a bill, a medical marijuana, or one that's been introduced, which is a recreational marijuana, and they may do it because they don't want the issue on the ballot to get the Democrats out, get the people out that would vote for medical marijuana. They don't want them voting because they vote Democrat.
813-239-9663 to talk to Joe Redner. Let's talk about this bill, which you've brought to us, just introduced today, Senator Dwight Bullard of South Florida. And what would this bill put on the ballot?
They wouldn't put anything on the ballot. This bill.
I'm sorry, on the statutes.
This bill. This is a statute that would legalize marijuana for recreational use and would regulate it like alcohol. Except it hasn't yet to be bastardized by the special interests that pour money into the legislature to get things changed around. The bill is kind of pure now.
It's brand new.
Now the alcohol statutes, they have a 3-tier system, and they've changed them, and the manufacturers the big manufacturers go in, they pay a lot of money to the legislatures for their campaigns and everything, and they get it changed. The special interest, they get it changed the way they want to, and they haven't had a chance to do that. And this bill is not bad for recreational marijuana.
Reading 813-239-9663 to talk to Joe Redner. Listen, reading through it, how would it work? What's he proposing, basically?
Well, it's stores. One store per 5,000 people. That's kind of like alcoholic beverages licenses too. They don't give out licenses for alcohol unless they have so many people. It's regulated. When the population increases, then they give out more licenses to coincide with how many people there are. Well, they're going to do the same thing. So it's going to be regulated just like alcohol. You'll have 5 licenses per
county or
no per population.
Oh,
you'll have
per capita.
Yeah, per 5,000. You'll have 1 license per 5,000 people. And so we have what, 300,000 here. So
right.
What is that? 300.
And would it go statewide, or does it enable the local communities?
It does enable local communities.
So it's a local vote then?
It will be, but I got a feeling the state, that's the municipalities and the counties, they're going to go by the state statute. They usually do. And in fact, there's Florida law in constitutional construction where the state statute always wins out over any local legislation if there's any conflicts.
And Washington, D.C., I think you probably saw that today. Washington, D.C. decriminalized possession of up to an ounce of marijuana for personal use.
Well, what is legalizing and decriminalizing? What do? They just slap you out and give you a 10
Well, they say, they maintain that it's against the law to smoke in public.
Okay, well, even this statute, you
which
won't
would
be able
do
to,
the same.
You won't be able to smoke unless you're on privately controlled property.
Right. It limits the amount that you can possess for recreational use and so forth, but that's basically it. Unless you have a larger amount, it's not a criminal offense. It's, you know, it's permissible according to what I read about DC today. And they say, you know, and that's an interesting situation because any law in the District of Columbia, the Congress can mess with. You know, they can intervene.
Yeah, it's a steamroller though. It's, yeah, they have a little time where the Congression, they have to look at it, but
Right.
it's a steamroller. I mean, it's just like the gay issue. It's just the liberals are taking over and they're steamrolling it in. You know, I never did let the government tell me what was good for me and what was bad for me. I make up my own mind for that because you just look at those guys. Look at what they do. It's crazy, and I'm gonna let them decide for me. You can't smoke marijuana. No.
You're listening to Joe Redner on WMNF, community radio station, 813-239-9663. Dave in Tampa, thank you so much for calling. You've got Joe Redner.
Well, I guess if you figure you're gonna make more than that, clandestinely, you know, undercover, you're gonna make more than that, then I guess it's okay. Or you're gonna feed it to your buddies and they'll love you for the rest of your life. I don't know. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. I agree.
We gotta have some candidates, don't we, Dave? I mean, isn't that kind of the bottom line? We gotta have some folks that might see it differently and break it. Or what do you think, Paul? I mean, Dave. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I was at the Performing Arts Center and Kathy Fountain came by me. She says, "Joe, you see what's going on? You need to run for office."
Yeah.
So
I think Kathy's right.
Yeah.
Dave, thanks so much for calling. Appreciate it.
Hey.
All right, let's talk to Paul in Seminole. You've got Joe Redner on WMNF, Paul.
Doing good. How are you? Yeah, a little justice, right. Goes a long way, a little justice. Yeah, I don't know where they get the nerve to do that. You know, it amazes me. Did you know that 50% of our oil habit makes plastics, but hemp can curb our addiction?
The hemp thing's amazing.
Yeah. Did you know that Ford had a car that ran on biodiesel fuel? And he even had hemp plastic panels that were 10 times stronger than steel. Did you know that hemp is one of the strongest materials on earth? Did you know it's completely biodegradable? I mean, it's just crazy. We got islands the size of Rhode Island, plastic islands floating out in the Pacific. And they just keep... Did you know that we use 1,500 plastic water bottles every second in this country? And they'll float out there for 100 years where they would just disintegrate if they were made of hemp, and there's no bad
Thank you, Paul.
I don't get it.
Appreciate it. It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And Mother Jones Magazine just published an investigation this week that all this madness about the chemicals in plastics and how the FDA banned all that stuff,
Yeah.
they've found evidence that the plastics industry is faking the testing.
Yeah.
And they're still making plastic with all this horrible stuff, and when hemp apparently could eliminate that problem.
Yes, it would.
Unbelievable.
It's just amazing. And what is our legislature and the Republican legislature doing? They're trying to privatize schools.
That seems to be a preoccupation, critics.
That's because there's billions and billions and billions of dollars in education. Just unbelievable amounts of money that the government pays. And what do when they get they get into the schools? They lower the pay of the teachers so they can make a profit. They've done it in the prison industry. They privatized in Florida the prison industry. Now the federal courts are starting to step in and say, hey, you've got these people in jail. You got to give them health care. You got to feed them right. What they do is they short everybody, put the money in their pocket, and the courts are going to have to come in and straighten it out because private enterprise is greedy. They're just greedy.
Let's go to Mike in Brandon. Hi, Mike. Hey, great.
Yeah, what is it? Yeah. You believe that? You really believe that there was a snake and people, and there's this all-powerful God up there that knows everything, and he's afraid of a snake, and he's killing people? What kind of God is this? I mean, he's puny. He's very, very puny and impotent.
WMNF, are you calling to be on the show? Alrighty, what's your first name?
So would you like to go back to where you didn't? Would you like to be where you didn't know anything? Is that what they want? Everybody wants to go back. Let me go back when I was ignorant. When God wanted me to be ignorant, but He left this little way for me to get out of it. I mean, what kind of stupidity is that? Who would do that? Our Republican legislature.
Oh, Joe. All right, Mike, thanks for calling. I think you made do you feel you made your point? You want to reiterate? I think you got it. All right, let's see who's next. Danny in Tampa. How do we get from
I always get to religion. I think that's the biggest problem with the world.
Let's deal with the pot legislation for a second. Go ahead, Danny.
WMNF, are you calling to be on the program? All right, what's your first name and where are you calling from?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you said Bob, B-O-B? Okay, and one more time, you said Lakeland?
Why is that? Why are they oblivious to the human suffering? I don't understand it. Not just in our country, not just people that marijuana would help, but all over the world. Well, that just shows you how gullible the American public is. They had them believing that marijuana would do something to people. Listen, in this country, if someone says we're supposed to be free, if someone tells you you can't do something